everyone, how we doing? How's it going? So today first I would like to introduce myself. I'm Juan, business lead at Obol. It's great to be here. Thanks for having us. Today we're going to be talking restaking, new opportunities for validators, how the ecosystem is shaping up, sort of like when the hype has sort of died down a bit, and see what's really real there, how operator economics are shaping up as well, and also how this all interacts with credible commitments, proposal commitments, such as pre-confirmations. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot to unpack here. But before we get into it, it would be great if you guys could introduce yourselves. We can maybe take it first here with Eigen.
Give it a chance. Hey, okay, great. Thank you very much for having us. My name's Wes from EigenLayer. I'm a member of the DevRel team and looking forward to chatting with you all about restaking.
Let's see. All right. I'll give you this. Lucas Kaczynski, founding contributor at Renzo. Really appreciate Moran and the team to have us here. We've been building on top of EigenLayer for 2 years almost now. We started building in May of 2023. Have expanded a little bit to Symbiotic and also building now on Jito, restaking on Solana.
Cody from DB Labs, part of the Obol collective, building DBT on Ethereum, helping to decentralize its validator set. Yeah, stoked to be here talking about pre-comps.
So George Sanchez, growth marketing at Blockdaemon, and yeah, we're really excited to be here to talk about restaking and some of the services that we're going to be providing.
Sounds good. All right, thanks for the intro, guys. So here, I think we have a very diverse panel. We have leading restaking protocols and liquid restaking protocols. We have DBT providers. We have operators. So I think we're going to have some very interesting perspectives on the restaking ecosystem these days and what's coming. But first, I would like to start with what excites you most these days around the restaking ecosystem, what's coming for this year. And maybe we can start with Eigen, who perhaps has this broader perspective on where the restaking ecosystem stands today, and then we can take it maybe one by one.
Yeah, on the core protocol side, we're really excited to wrap up a few of the key pieces to the protocol. We just released rewards payments recently in the protocol, and then slashing is a big focus for us. So that's kind of the last key pillar of our protocol, getting that live. Folks are very excited about it, both because of the risk and also the opportunity. So folks are trying to measure what's the potential risks, but also just builders, people building AVSs are really excited because they can do a lot more with it now that they have flashing. And then in terms of the usage and the AVS, earlier on, a lot of our customers were Ethereum native services, bridges, oracles, folks like that were underserved in the Ethereum community as early adopters. And now we're also seeing folks coming in who are, let's say, more traditional cloud infrastructure or AI-oriented use cases, things that can kind of sometimes be a little more consumer-oriented application type use cases. So it's just fun to see the evolution of folks that are interested in the space.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting.
Yeah, on our end, very similar. We follow a roadmap alongside EigenLayer. So with slashing coming online, and some other improvements, we're kind of getting to what we first envisioned 2 years ago as V1 for Renzo. Still a ton of work to do, obviously, as more AVS start launching, and reward management and risk management is going to become a big factor. So even though the underlying rails are going to be in a pretty good place, I would say, for Renzo V1, there's going to be higher focus around how you harvest rewards from AVSs, how do you manage that risk with different kind of products as well. I think what we're starting to see is not AI agents, but agent-like use cases, specifically around EigenLayer, around insurance type vehicles and underwriting risk. Which essentially, when you think about restaking and the matching between the supply and demand, you're underwriting risk and providing security. So there's 3 projects right now that we're talking to that are looking to kind of expand on what the original idea on Eigen was, but be able to use restaked as insurance. And that's going to kind of go into the V2 that we're working on internally at Renzo, looking to go up the stack and also provide products outside of liquid restaking. I think the space, we've kind of got bucketed into LRT protocols, but we had to start somewhere as a protocol. And in order to start, we had to show that there was product market fit and build out all the rails. And we knew early on that the biggest demand would be for liquid restaking tokens. But now that the tech is mature, Renzo grew to 4 billion TVL in the first 4 months. We've been stress tested. Withdrawals are actually good, right? You need to ensure that you could take funds in, but also return them. And now we're able to start working on products that don't actually have the liquid restaking token component of it, but it's more vault-like products for customized use cases on top of EigenLayer. So that's what I'm excited about. It's going to take some time, again, to mature, but the fact that we have clients coming to us and they just think that liquid restaking is the only way to do it, but there's a mismatch because with liquid restaking, there's a lot of DeFi integrations and leverage and like Aave and lending protocols that doesn't actually bide well with some of the use cases around underwriting risk. If you have to draw down the collateral, not even slashing, that's really bad for a lending protocol because it would cause cascades. So we do have a smart contract layer on top of EigenLayer where we have a receipt token, but it doesn't have to have all these DeFi integrations and serve a lot of custom use cases. So I think very quickly the space has kind of quietly matured since the frenzy in H1 last year. And there's a ton of work, and now it's kind of trying to figure out where the new demand and the big market share is going to come from.
Nice. Yeah, I guess what I'm looking at it from like a node operator perspective and a user perspective. I would say that I'm excited for users because maybe there's like AVSs they're leveraging or pre-conf projects that are leveraging AVSs that can maybe guarantee inclusion for for their transactions. So if there's like some NFT mint or something on L1 and you don't want to tip like 1 ETH, maybe in your wallet it shows like an actual price that would guarantee you inclusion. So that's cool from like from a user perspective. From the validator perspective, really looking forward to like what their true yield is, like a yield increase for some of these things. And yeah, when slashing goes live with EigenLayer, curious to see like what the different slashing mechanisms are for each AVS, and like how to evaluate the risks of those, because I think that's like something hard for me to do right now. Like as a naive validator, I'm looking at like, oh, this operator is validating 30 AVSs, and it's like, well, there's no risk right now, so I'm going to go with that guy. But when slashing comes online, maybe we might need to reevaluate that. So yeah, looking forward to the next 3, 6, 12 months, see how the space evolves.
Yeah, so I'll take it from a different direction and say that one of the things I'm really excited about is the regulatory clarity in the space. I think that's something that's going to be really critical for us to see adoption really increase and get the institutional players really excited and comfortable taking more exposure in restaking.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very interested in the fact that you guys mentioned all the maturity of the rails in Eigen and restaking. But one of the things I think many people really want to see these days are, when are we going to see AVS rewards flowing? What's the real yield? Of course, this is there's still a big question mark on this. But what are your guys' expectations on this? And when can we expect to see some economic flow for the different AVSs? And basically to the end staker.
No, that's a fantastic question. I think that's very relevant. We are starting to see some early stages. We have some folks like eOracle, who's starting to pay rewards. Obviously, you know, EigenDA and Eigen Foundation have been subsidizing the rewards to some extent as well. But I think as we are growing and onboarding more AVSs, we'll naturally see the rewards flows increase. I mean, one of the things that we spend time on, I mean, I can speak for myself, when I meet with new AVSs and they're learning, okay, you know, how does this work? What is it? What do I do? What's a staker? You know, how does an AVS work? I'm explaining it to them, but I'm also explaining, you know, they really want to think about their core use case for their application. Because at the end of the day, AVS is a very fun technology, but it's also one where, you know, they're getting utility from the operators and they want to be able to reward that utility to the operators and the stakers too. So it's kind of, it's been a, you know, being such a young protocol, it's a bit chicken and egg, but I see that now, I don't know, we have maybe 30 or so AVSs live on mainnet. We have maybe 100 or so in testnet. One of our focuses is to make it easy for those builders to get to mainnet faster. And I think if we can do a good job of that and onboard more AVSs that are providing real utility to their users, I think we'll see it grow in a healthy way. But yeah.
So within, if we just focus on EigenLayer specifically, there's Redstone is going to be launching here very soon. They had a massive announcement this week with their Binance listing. I was having dinner with Luke last night. We were going through everything. They're fully up and running, right? Their ABS is up. Their payment contracts are already integrated. And I believe they're going to be taking security in ETH Eigen and their token RET. Also, Primev does pay out ETH rewards for pre-confirmation. So we're starting to see those early signs. The other side of the marketplace is starting to catch up to the demand that we saw on the liquid side. And yeah, I think those are probably the top two that I would say kind of come top of mind for me. On the Solana side, very briefly, I'll bring up because it's actually been an interesting kind of cycle that they've been able to go through. Sometimes fast followers have the opportunity to learn and see other tech, and they're able to move very fast. So on Jito, they launched their own AVS where they've decentralized the distribution of MEV rewards to their validators, and a couple weeks ago started paying out pretty significant rewards in Jito Sol. So it's kind of cool when you start looking at the whole ecosystem, and depending on the tech stacks, they're very different, and yeah, just seeing how everybody kind of moves and where the yields come from.
Do you guys have any, and it's perfectly fine if you guys don't, but like any like expectations you guys are having in terms of, yeah, we're having a few ABSs and they're going to be paying out rewards soon, but do you guys have any like expectation of what the increased APY may look like in the next few months, for example, or not really? It's, of course, perhaps it's too early to say.
Yeah, there's still too many variables. Essentially, when you think of a AVS or any project's maturity curve, you first, or historically, you start off with some kind of point campaign. Then, before product market fit, when you're actually generating real revenue, you're going to subsidize different services with your token. And then you have product market fit, hopefully, that everybody tries to achieve, where you don't have to subsidize in your own token. So we're all kind of going through that life cycle. LRTs came first. Then when Eigen came on board, they're still ramping up. So they're subsidizing very, very significantly to the Eigen ecosystem. But the whole goal is to kind of grow out of that and have sustainable yield from real product market fit and a marketplace. So when you think about that and the amount of players that are involved, there's so many variables, it's impossible, right? And yeah, so still early.
I don't know if you guys have any, you want to add something, or we can move on to the next one.
Don't have a whole lot to add there, but I was interested in what you just mentioned about Jito giving back like rewards to operators. Like that's something that we've talked about in Ethereum for a long time. So yeah, it would be cool to like, you know, copy that, right, and bring it to Ethereum. Because, but there's also a lot of actors in the MEV pipeline that like need their cut. So, that's TBD if that could actually happen. But
absolutely, I would like to go back to one of the things that Lucas was mentioning. In the sense that the managing risk for all these different liquid restaking protocols is something that's very important. I want to know if you guys have, for example, any frameworks that operators should use to evaluate the risk-reward trade-offs when participating in different AVSs. How do you guys think about that? And if there are any frameworks you guys use to, for example, manage risk in that sense?
So the way at Renzo that we've thought about it from the very beginning, and we wrote about this in 2023, early 24, now we're going to be able to start executing it, is really around max loss. When you start thinking about max loss that is slashable across one AVS or 10 AVSs, any kind of collateral that's being put up, you're able to much easily start quantifying what the risk reward is. If you know, for example, if you have 10 AVSs and the most that they could slash in a given event is 5%, now you could quantify what the loss potential is if all of them were to slash at the same time. And I think that's going to be like the hardest part of being able to quantify it. So we've published some research pieces. We're working with Chaos Labs around that as well. We actually think developing the risk frameworks internally is actually where the IP is going to sit with a lot of this stuff. Everything else is open source. It's actually very difficult to build a lot of it, even though the products look very similar on the front end. Behind the scenes, all the liquid restaking protocols are very, very different in the way we manage keys with operators. For example, Renzo does not manage the keys, so we've been able to integrate with operators like Figment and Coinbase Cloud, who only will integrate with partners where they can manage their own keys. And when you start looking at all those pieces, there is IP there, but because it's open source, we have seen players kind of come in and even fork our code. But the risk management frameworks and how you quantify that risk, and we'll get there eventually with AI, where AI is going to be able to, in real time, agents are going to be able to react based on the risk frameworks and shift capital around, whether it's de-risking or going in somewhere where there's an opportunity because the risk reward kind of balanced out. That's going to take time. I don't know, 3 to 5 years probably. But developing those early frameworks around how to quantify risk, actually putting capital behind them and putting them to work is going to be really important.
Absolutely, and I'm also curious, perhaps from like the Eigen perspective, are you guys partnering, for example, with like the gauntlets of the world, building out risk frameworks? Is it like the research team is focused on providing these resources to the community? What's the approach at Eigen in terms of building out risk frameworks for picking AVSs?
I haven't seen our research teams intentionally publish risk frameworks yet. We've been very fortunate with a community where just organic community members are very active in publishing these risk frameworks. So, and I was trying to find a couple examples, but if you do a Google search for AVS risk framework, there's really smart folks right now who are going through and doing a lot of really good diligence on that topic. And it's kind of like L2 Beat almost, but for AVSs, so you get a nice kind of visual look at what's going on. So I think we'll have a pretty robust community, and to the point about IP, you're absolutely right. Like it is, the more sophisticated operators that we talk to, they have very sophisticated risk modeling, and sometimes they're protective of it, and that's perfectly fine. And then some folks in the community want to publish it too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess we really are fortunate because I've also been digging into this topic, and I think that there are some really solid risk frameworks popping up, and I think this is going to really help the community make these decisions. But I'm also curious, we have Blockdaemon here, we have Obol, which work very closely with the operators here as well. And from your perspective, how is this shaping up? For example, is Blockdaemon planning to offer restaking to the customers in anytime soon? I know you guys have been very big on vanilla staking, but is restaking popping up in your discussions, and how is that progressing?
Yeah, so we do provide restaking offerings, and that's something that we will continue and do want to focus on. When we evaluate risk, one of the things that we look at is, of course, doing a deep technical due diligence, because every service that you're going to be securing has its own technical, or can have its own technical requirements, slashing penalties, parameters, and so you really need to be careful that you're not just going out, like you were alluding to before, that people were doing now without slashing, just securing every protocol or every AVS that you could. But we're being conservative. Look at the tech, look at the economic rewards, make sure that it aligns with your strategy overall, and then from there, looking at the rest of the risk model. But primarily, it's just really making sure that we're aligned with what we're securing and that it fits into our overall strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I made one for Cody here. Since you are probably one, at least in the Obol team, you work closest with the operators. You're very close with their economics. Yeah, how's the general sentiment there? Are you guys excited about the potential extra uses that are going to pop up? And generally, what's the general feeling with the node operators?
Yeah, I think that node operators, especially home node operators, want to obviously get more yield. But they also, want to put like idle resources to use, whether that be, maybe running like a lightweight AVS or something like that. But yeah, I was actually kind of interested in what we're talking about risk right now across multiple AVSs and like delegating to operators. I wonder if, once slashing comes live, if like, you might delegate to an operator who might not, who's done their due diligence and doesn't want to secure multiple AVSs that have like correlated slashing risk or something like that. So, yeah, I think from the node operator's perspective, we're just looking to, increase yield, get more. We're looking to see these AVSs like, have some like utility. So yeah, I'd say that's what we want.
I just want to chime in here. There was a very strategic reason. Renzo was actually the first one that said back in April, we're going to go and secure every single AVS from the get-go. One, because there was no slashing. Two, the way I've explained this in other discussions is we're able to speed date with not having any strings attached. And when you think about the speed dating, it's AVS to operator to restaking protocol, and the relationships, just basic communication. When you have to coordinate across so many partners, like with Renzo, you have one, but we have 5 operators, and then I think there was like 15 AVSs. If you think about the number of combinations of conversations that need to happen in the relationship building before you even start integrating the tech, we identified very early that Eigen was giving us this opportunity to actually, I call it speed dating because there's no strings attached, right? Like if you don't like each other or if something doesn't work, there's no consequences to it, versus if Eigen had first launched with a couple AVSs with slashing on day one, everybody would be very hesitant and very careful and very slow to turn things on and integrate with each other, which would have drove the cost of capital to actually secure these services extremely high. Now that we've had about 9 months, a little bit more, or around 9 months to speed date with each other, integrate with each other, understand what the requirements are to secure these services, that barrier is no longer there. Teams feel more comfortable talking with each other, running these services. They're not as afraid of slashing, which I think is really important for the EigenLayer ecosystem, because you don't have to subsidize capital to come in as much as possible. There's capital literally sitting there, and it's willing to secure at a much lower cost. Now, the other thing that we have started doing at Renzo is we've actually started undelegating. We talk to all these AVSs. We know what is vaporware, what is not, who's serious, who's actually thinking about and has a plan to pay for services. And I actually became very vocal in Q4 and said, hey, we're going to start undelegating. People were like, wait, what do you mean? Like, I'm getting free security right now. I'm like, okay, you got to show up as well, right? So we did a batch of about 4 AVSs in Q4. We're again ready to do another batch. And you're going to see Renzo come down to a smaller core set of operators, not operators, AVSs. And there's going to be very, very strict due diligence on adding new AVSs. But we've gone through that cycle. So it was very strategic. And it's actually very easy to undelegate now from AVSs. The nice thing we also found out in December was some AVSs didn't have the API integrations built out to be able to undelegate. So we were stuck in a couple AVSs, and I was yelling at the founders. I was like, dude, like, you guys need to have this. We would have not found that out if we didn't go and secure all those AVSs. So now our criteria for securing AVSs with operators is becoming more strict, and something as simple as like having an API call to undelegate, you would think that everybody was doing that. Nobody was, right? So that's part of the speed dating game that we went through, and I think it was very healthy and good for the ecosystem.
Absolutely. No, and I think we're seeing multiple signs of maturity. From what I'm picking on is a lot of this hinges on slashing getting enabled, because that's when due diligence will get more strict. Probably risk frameworks are going to change as well. So I would like to get your take, Wes, from how is the slashing enablement progressing on the Eigen side? I know you guys are on testnet. What mechanisms, if you know, are ABS picking for slashing? And just a quick rundown of what's the progress there would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the engineering side, this is probably our #1 focus right now. I think this is everything we talk about from a regular basis is moving as quickly as possible. We're targeting, I don't know, the next few months approximately. It's constantly a battle of we're in heavy debug mode right now, and then we're also getting ready for smart contract audits on the slashing code. So it's got to be super tight. And there's a version of it in testnet right now. We'll get it to mainnet as quickly as possible. It'll be interesting to see how many AVSs choose to slash and how many need to slash. There's so many dials, and even when I talk with new AVSs, there's so many things that they can do to disincentivize bad behavior. They can eject operators. They can withhold rewards without actually having to have heavy financial penalties. So it's very use case dependent. If it's a financialized application, they might have reasons why they need to slash. So that's kind of the biggest goal, is get that out. And then after we have slashing live, the next big advancement is going to be what we've called stake sure in the past, or programmatic slashing, which I think is going to be really fun. And that's going to open up a lot of advanced DeFi use cases where the party that is harmed in the slashing can receive the slashed funds. There's a lot of work for our research teams to evaluate all this and make sure there's no edge cases, and that people can't lose funds and they're sort of like through hacking attempts and things like that. But that's a big focus for us, and once we get that, I think we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Perhaps a more spicy question. Do you think there is systemic risk once slashing is enabled with different ABSs for Ethereum and Ethereum security? Or perhaps it remains isolated with HAVS. I know there's been changes in the design there, but yeah, just curious here and open it up for everyone here on different takes here.
Well, I can say that for core Ethereum security, I don't personally see core risks in the sense that if funds are slashed, the validator remains intact, and effectively there's no effect to the core funds until the validator funds are withdrawn. So I expect it to be a comfortable situation for operators and validators. I don't think that once slashing is enabled, we're going to see a lot of broader risks, as I think the AVSs will use them very sparingly. I think even having a slash, just like in core Ethereum, just having slashing is enough to move people in the right direction. So I will tentatively say that I think it's going to be smooth sailing, but it's going to be fun. We'll find out.
Yeah, curious to hear how it takes.
That's a loaded question. almost our whole engineering team has been focused for the past 2.5 months on the EigenLayer upgrade. Again, this is one of those things that seems pretty straightforward, but when you have billions of dollars of deposits and upgrading any kind of software, the due diligence that has to go into building out the code. We recently just jumped on a call with Nader and the team. We found a critical piece of code that we needed to be able to track TVL when funds are slashed. When funds are slashed and they're withheld, we need to be able to calculate the TVL in the protocol to determine how much collateral we have on what's going to be slashed. That wasn't there. The EigenLayer team did an amazing job. I think within like 3 days, they jumped on it, made sure it was going to be included in the release. But not only that, you have to have multiple audits. To have multiple audits, it's not like you could just call an auditor and like they'll jump on it tomorrow. There was one auditor we worked with in our first set of audits last year said, sorry guys, like we're fully occupied with Eigen. Luckily, we do have one audit firm on retainer. Every single piece of code at Renzo, any kind of smart contract goes through an audit review. And then we're doing a complete re-audit of the protocol based on the changes that are being made on testnet. On the slashing piece, I also agree that the underlying systematic risks they should be okay. I say should because anything could always happen. With LRTs, we've seen an evolution in the last year where there's a lot of leverage on lending protocols. So essentially what we saw last year was pre-TGE, it was points frenzy, it was levering up on Pendle, and then once projects started launching and had tokens, we just saw the risk and the leverage move over to lending protocols. There was changes that were made in a lot of cases where exchange rate oracles are being used instead of market rate oracles to take out the risk of liquidations from depegs on price when the collateral is there. There's no slashing, so we know you could calculate and you could see on chain what collateral is there. Once you start introducing actually two features, a longer withdrawal period, which EigenLayer is moving from 7 to 14 days, that's really important because if you're levered up and you need the collateral, and originally where it took you 7 days to withdraw that collateral, now it's going to 14 days. There's a duration risk that needs to be factored in when you're doing any kind of DeFi integrations. Then with the introduction of slashing, even being withholding funds and not slashing, we'll see how committees are set up and stuff like that. The ability not to be able to access that collateral does put massive strain on liquidations and DeFi. So we're monitoring that. We work, like I mentioned, with Chaos. We have a very good relationship with Gauntlet, with the lending protocols where there's things that liquid restaking protocols do, like we manage a buffer. So not all of the deposits in Renzo are actually staked and restaked. We hold about 10% of those funds in a buffer contract. They don't generate any yield, but we have to go through a 7 or 10 day withdrawal period on the Beacon chain, and we could go through a smaller withdrawal period of maybe 3 days at Renzo we're doing right now to get those funds. That is all going to change when you go to 14 days and there is slashing because we can't release funds to users if there's even a possibility that a portion of that's going to get slashed because then you got people trying to front run withdrawals. So I don't think there's a clear answer. What I'm trying to explain is it's actually much more complicated when you have a liquid restaking token.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add there. Maybe I'd have like a pretty naive take, and it's that I kind of view risk as, it starts out as, maybe smart contract risk, and then each time you add another trusted actor in the middle, the risk, maybe gets exponentially bigger. So that's, I don't see a systemic risk that's the size of the, restaking protocols right now. But, once there is a lot of AVSs being secured that that have a lot of value, maybe that risk goes up. That's my take.
Yeah, don't also believe there's a significant systemic risk. However, there are things that need to be considered, and some of those that we look at is just the correlation of risk and making sure that there's no core dependency among all of the AVSs that we're supporting that could potentially lead to kind of failure across all of those nodes. And so just making sure that we're monitoring that and incorporating that as part of our due diligence process to just consider within our own kind of ecosystem.
Absolutely. Cool. So I will leave some room for Q&A towards the end. So perhaps I'm going to move forward towards the future of restaking, what you guys are more excited about, perhaps give some closing remarks as well. So yeah, however you guys want to take it, what are you guys excited about? Maybe touch upon a little bit of what's the critical commitments you're most excited for, maybe pre-confirmations, how those interact with restaking. But generally, yeah, looking towards the future, what you guys are most excited about.
Yeah, I mean, following up with your point earlier about rewards payments, those sorts of things, a lot of my personal interest in the space is around consumer uses of crypto. So, if people want to rebuild something like Twitter or YouTube or some kind of popular consumer-facing app, in Web3, the person that would build that app does not have the best suite of choices yet. They don't have, like if you go to Amazon Web Services, in Web2 you've got compute, database, AI, storage. In Web3, those are still evolving. And so I think one of the things that I'm excited about is I see a lot of really fun new projects that want to provide those for Web3 builders. And hopefully we can help them get to market faster so that in the future, the person that wants to build these really great new consumer applications comes into Web3 and they have all this plethora of fantastic options to use and they can build applications quickly. And then also as a result, they're going to be having product market fit, paying their operators and other things as well. So that's what I'm excited to see is the evolution of all these new ideas coming into the protocol.
I would add to that, in a similar case I mentioned earlier, we're starting to see additional use cases. You're going to see Renzo grow out of just being an LRT and provide different types of security and different structures of security, whether it's a bond-like model or isolated pool risks for users to be able to deploy capital. Very early on, when we first started, I didn't think it was going to be possible for anybody to really customize what kind of exposure they want to a set of things. We've matured enough and the Rails have got to the point where at Renzo we do have smart contracts and pretty packaged, I would say packages where you could actually launch different kind of vehicles with it's very light smart contracts on top of operators to be able to customize different kind of risk reward profiles, whether it's different deposit assets or from a duration perspective, we know AVSs are going to need a fixed amount of security. They're worried that security, they might have a lot of security, but it could also drop. So you could do things like extend the withdrawal period and have a 3-month duration bond-like vehicle to be able to deploy and guarantee a certain amount of security to an AVS. So we're going to see this, I think, start playing out over the next 6 to 12 months. And it's really going to marketplace of different kind of just structured products to be able to secure risk.
Yeah, I'd say outside of L1 inclusion pre-confirmations, I think that what I'm really excited about is based sequencing and what design path that takes. It seems like there's a lot of it's an open design space at the moment, and Yeah, really looking forward to see if we can move forward on that without the use of a gateway to make it more, more trustless. Like I said earlier, the more trusted actors we place in like the pipeline, I said the more risk I see we taking on. So yeah, I'd say base sequencing is something I'm really excited about as a validator and user of the network.
Yeah, so I think restaking just really removed a lot of barriers to entries for people that want to innovate on top of Ethereum. And so, what's really exciting is just seeing the amount of decentralized apps that get created and the AVSs that are going to be enabled now by not having the significant barrier to entry caused by the need for security. And so the emergence of a security market and the removal of barrier, I think, is going to be significant for entrepreneurship and innovation in the space, and for ultimately the vision of Web3 and what we've had for it for a long time. I think between this, the new validator type from the Pectra upgrade and pre-confirmation, I think we're really in a good place to start seeing real development.
Amazing. Cool. So with that, a quick round of applause for our panelists, and we can then dive into Q&A.
Yo. Been full-time since 2017. We've continued to build an amazing amount of infrastructure. From the lowest level being like a home operator, having now abundant block space, abundant data availability, now because of restaking, even more infrastructure to build stuff. Do I have to wait another 24, 36 months to see applications that are getting product market fit outside of DeFi? Because I think DeFi is actually pretty good. Use DeFi. Please, we have a lot of infrastructure.
Yeah, no, so the good news is, no, you're not going to have to wait that long. And in fact, what's really exciting to me is that a lot of the new projects that I get to meet with on a regular basis are ironically projects that already have product market fit, but they're not decentralized, and they want to add restaking as a means to further build trust within their networks. There was a group that already had some experience with traditional banking in South America. They have traditional banking customers, but those banking customers want to access DeFi, and so restaking and AVS securing is a way to do that. But even publicly, like Layer 0 and the work we're doing with Consensus and their networks is just examples of established protocols, really smart folks, great product market fit. And now I think we're getting into that phase where it's going to be more of exactly what you described. Yeah, so I think it's happening.
Exciting. Does anyone have any other questions for the panelists? You guys have any other takes as well? You good? Yeah. Go for it.
Oh, hey guys. I guess it's a question for Wes, really. Is the right way to see EigenLayer as a permissionless protocol on which anyone can build an AVS, or a kind of set of products? We run a very small operator, and we also came across the problem that Renzo was describing with the inability to deregister. And what I was wondering is whose responsibility it is to ensure that the AVSs are behaving appropriately, and how we manage that as a community. Should EigenLayer have picked that up, or should we have noticed in advance? And how are we going to collectively manage that?
I'll start with an answer and then I'll let you. Yeah, it's a great, so just to rephrase your question, you're asking whose responsibility should it be that the AVSs are behaving properly, that they're communicating their requests?
Or implementing all of your protocol features.
Yeah. Well, so there's a delicate balance, I think, which you're kind of alluding to. And, at the end of the day, EigenLayer is a permissionless protocol. I mean, it is effectively a dApp running on Ethereum L1. We're very concerned about being a good community member and a good community steward, in the sense that, we do try to be an open protocol, and we do try to be an inclusive protocol. So I think what you will see recommendations from EigenLayer. Like, there's an example, there was a document we've been working on, mainnet checklist criteria, things that we think that AVSs should be doing, as an example. But we have to be a little careful, because we don't want to overstep our bounds and somehow, go beyond what our role as a protocol to teams that might take their own different direction or try to be the judge or the arbiter. And I think we really all value this decentralization philosophy. So we try to play it very safe and try to be very thoughtful about being a decentralized permissionless protocol, while at the same time giving recommendations and guardrails, because we do want it to be a healthy protocol. We don't want it to be, you know, reckless in some sense.
Yeah, I get that point, but I guess I'd say if you put something on your website which has an AVS button and you can click it and register very easily through a fancy UI, then one would assume that you had done some of the background checking, or maybe not. It's interesting. I'd like to hear what the Renzo guys think.
Yeah, so in this example, for us, this was not a feature that we liked, but for the AVS, it was a feature, right? So it depends on what part of the marketplace you're at. And this was a feature. Like it's very easy to include that piece of code. Now there's other ways for us to get liquidity out, and it's the way we started doing it was when withdrawals were being asked, we would prioritize withdrawals away from that operator that was securing that AVS. But we were at the mercy of how much withdrawal pressure we had to be able to drain that operator from that AVS. But to answer your other question, whose responsibility? That was a miss. There was 2 point of failures. It was the operator's point of failure, and it was Renzo's point of failure. And that was part of the dating that we were going through. Had there been slashing enabled, the conversation would have been very different. So it's not that we weren't able to get capital out. We didn't have the ability to undelegate.
We have the same. We came across the same thing. Now we're much smaller than you, and much less sophisticated. And I guess the reason I'm asking the question is, if it becomes not EigenLayer's problem at all and all of ours, then the level of sophistication for restaking operators and users goes up exponentially.
Yeah, but then there's a marketplace that's created, and as a small operator, you might focus on AVSs that have similar requirements, and you're comfortable with that, and you're going to see a marketplace get created for other operators that have the infrastructure and the resources internally to go out on the variable curve and charge a premium, right? So we haven't seen this play out yet, but I think you're going to see all these different things play out over time.
Check, check. Hi, everyone. How you doing? I missed most of your talk, but I think I got the best parts when I got in, so GG to you guys. My question is, in the event that you have like a lot of demand for AVSs outside of the Ethereum mainnet, what does that look like for teams like Eigen especially? You know, Eigen is currently Ethereum only, but if like there's demand for AVSs in, let's say, Monad, for example, how would Eigen adjust to that? And what's the idea behind that for you guys?
It's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. It's very topical. It's very important recently. And just speaking with new AVSs recently, we have a lot of demand for folks that may be on Base or maybe on OP mainnet. And so we just released, if you have a chance to pull up our docs.eigenlayer.xyz site, we added a roadmap page. And one of the items in that roadmap specifically is deploying AVS anywhere and supporting other chains and these sorts of things. So it's actually something that we had invested time, significant amount of time in the past, in extending the ability for folks to deploy various versions of their AVS or extend their crypto economic security to other chains. We care about it. Our customers care about it. So it definitely will be a solution. In the meantime, we also have partners like Authentic that are built on top of EigenLayer, and they have some really smart solutions that allow you to, even today, deploy your crypto economic security and extend it to other L2s. So we've got some good solutions in place, and we'll keep focusing on it, yeah.
Just to add there, on the other side of the marketplace, Renzo was the first one last year in February to extend, to be able to restake from anywhere. So a relationship with Connects that we launched, it was actually ETHDenver last year, the ability to take ETH from Base or Arbitrum, not have to bridge it over and be able to mint an LRT token. Now, that was the first iteration of ETH assets, but as you start seeing rollups use AVSs, whether it's DA, ZK, we had a long conversation with Ishmael last night. What you start seeing is a really nice flywheel effect because, let's say base, for example, somebody on, or the base, if they're using any kind of services on EigenLayer, now they could have stake on their chain, on their L2, that's securing those same services, and you could customize a receipt token or an LRT that only secures those same services, and the fees that are being paid for those services actually return back to the chain and to the users that are using it. You're going to see, I think, both actually play out.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, let's do another round of applause.